night. We'll end at around 11. Should we stop at number 5 says, what are tariffs? For all the quote-unquote D students in the room, what are tariffs? This came with a link that's going to take us to YouTube. What we'll do is we will watch the video and then we will discuss it.
Completely impossible to avoid in the news lately. And you're not alone if it's left you scratching your head. What is a tariff? How do they work? Who pays them? And how will the U.S.'s potential new tariff platform affect you in your day-to-day life? You don't need a degree in economics to understand all this. You just need to sit back and pay attention to this episode of the Infographics Show, and you'll understand exactly how all of this will impact your wallet. So, let's start with the basics. What are tariffs? Thankfully, it's not actually that complicated. Tariffs are a special tax placed on imported goods from other countries. They're added directly to the price of goods as the import takes place. But what does that mean in practical terms? Let's say you're in the market for a new car. You can't decide whether you want a BMW imported straight from Germany or a Chrysler right from here in the US of A. The prices of the cars themselves are competitive, but why do you end up paying more for the imported Beamer? It might be because of a tariff on imported cars. But maybe we need to think a little bit bigger than that. Maybe you're not an average consumer. Maybe you're a company based in Silicon Valley, ready to create the next big thing in tech. But to do this, you're probably going to need microprocessors. They're required for everything from smartphones to washing machines, after all. Taiwan isn't just an island in the Pacific, it's the microchip capital of the world, responsible for over a third of all global production. But if there's a tariff on tech from outside of the US, the costs might rise so high that your tech company will need to start exploring deals to build microchips right here in the US. This is how tariffs can affect not only whole products made outside of the US, like the BMW, but items manufactured in the US that are made from parts abroad, like the ambitions of our tech company. Still with us? Good. Now let's take a closer look at why countries use tariffs, because this is crucial to understanding why a government might want to put them in place. There are 3 reasons why a government might choose to impose a tariff: revenue, protecting domestic businesses, and as a political incentive against another country. Revenue is the most straightforward of the 3. The government wants to collect taxes to fund its own initiatives, so a higher tax on imported goods makes for more government revenue, especially if the tariffs aren't high enough to force companies to shift to US-based production. But if the taxes are severe enough that domestic companies consider a change, then the tariff might have been imposed to help protect domestic workers and manufacturers. The rise of economic globalization has led to a lot of U.S. industries, from tech to textiles, outsourcing their manufacturing work to other countries, often in Asia. This not only encourages unethical labor practices like sweatshops to keep the manufacturing costs low, it also ends up affecting workers and companies in the U.S. Take, for example, the automotive industry that was once the lifeblood of Detroit, Michigan. Outsourcing automotive manufacturing, the move toward automation, and the increasing popularity of foreign cars moving into the U.S. auto market had a ruinous effect on D-Town. Theoretically, imposing stronger tariffs would have helped both companies and consumers support domestic automakers and prevent their jobs from being outsourced overseas. And then there's the strategic political element. Tariffs might be a tool to help address a trade imbalance, also known as a trade deficit. This is a situation where a company is importing more than it's exporting, meaning it's perhaps built an over-reliance on foreign goods. However, trade deficits aren't necessarily a terrible thing. The U.S. has actually run on a trade deficit since the 1970s, and the impacts of this rarely have a considerable effect against the average consumer. But still, if a government wants to address a trade deficit manually, then tariffs are a pretty good start. Making it more costly and inconvenient to import parts and goods encourages consumers to shop local when they can, giving exports a chance to keep up while imports falter. But this is an internal political strategy. What if you want to use tariffs to affect other countries with economic leverage? Tariffs can be used punitively, somewhat like a less severe approach to an economic sanction where trade with a sanctioned country is outright forbidden. Increasing tariffs against a particular country's imported goods can hurt them economically, and this can be used as a bargaining chip for wider trade or political negotiations. We've often seen this between the US and China from 2018 to 2020. So that is what a tariff is, and a few reasons why a country might use them. But there are a few much more serious and important details we need to get into now. How do these tariffs actually work? Who do the extra costs get passed on to? And how might some of the planned tariffs we're seeing in the news right now affect your wallet? First, let's address the how. Let's look at two different types of tariff and how they work. Type number 1 are specific tariffs. This is a fixed extra fee applied to an import, which will stay the same regardless of how much that import costs. Let's return to your BMW you were thinking about importing. If the government imposes a $2,000 specific tariff on auto products from Germany, you'll be paying $2,000 whether you're buying a $40,000 BMW X1 xDrive 28i SUV or a $120,000 BMW M850i. So that's specific tariffs. Then there's the other type, ad valorem tariffs. These added costs are expressed as a percentage of the value of goods. For example, a 10% tariff on fruits and vegetables grocery companies import from abroad, keeping the tariffs proportional to the specific goods. At first glance, tariffs might seem like a win-win. They protect local jobs and reduce dependence on foreign economies. But the reality is, tariffs can have a hidden side. Despite their good intentions, they often come with unintended consequences that can ripple through industries, raising costs and impacting consumers in ways we don't always expect. One of these consequences is making domestic industries worse. Without the competition of international trade keeping them on their toes, domestic companies might become an oligopoly, less accountable to the demands of their customers. After all, it's not like they can just go shop somewhere else. Less competition can also have another nasty effect for consumers. Without competition, no competitive pricing, meaning that consumers don't even end up saving money. On an international scale, like any political strategy, tariffs as a means to exert economic leverage on other countries could backfire. Rather than getting the concessions they want, the other party might just impose tariffs right back in retaliation, resulting in a trade war that ultimately just hurts both parties at once. We saw this again from 2018 to 2020, when the US imposed heavy tariffs against goods from EU member states and China. This resulted in a number of retaliatory tariffs against US products from bourbon to Harley-Davidson motorcycles. But what does getting hurt by a tariff actually mean? To answer that question, we need to ask ourselves another. When tariffs get imposed on goods, who actually ends up footing the bill? Well, to put it simply, you do. That's right. It's a huge oversight to think that the country exporting goods ends up paying extra. The purpose of tariffs is to make foreign goods more expensive for you, the consumer. It's a way to disincentivize you from buying those foreign goods and instead shopping domestically. Now, this sounds like a pretty simple plan in an ideal world, but a quick look out your window and at your bank account reveals none of us live in an ideal world. Lower-income consumers are often the ones most impacted by tariffs. They're already working with more limited options for where they can shop for basic necessities, including everything from food to bottled water to toilet paper. If the more affordable foreign goods end up being made more expensive by tariffs, people without much money to spare will end up paying more either way. You might think that small businesses would benefit from a rise in tariffs compared to huge multinational companies that heavily invested in international manufacturing. Well, the truth isn't actually that simple. In our modern globalized economy, small businesses may just be as likely to benefit from imported goods and parts. Without the same resources as their larger counterparts, a sudden rise in tariffs might throw their business into disarray. Tariffs might sound simple in theory, but in practice, the gap between their intended benefits and the actual impact can be significant. We've already discussed the theory at length here, but let's take a look at the practice for consumers and businesses. For consumers, a sudden spike in the price of imported goods can feel like inflation with no escape. In regions of the US that are heavily reliant on these imports, they're often left footing the bill if domestic alternatives aren't already available. Without the infrastructure to support replacements, many are simply forced to absorb these higher costs. And what about the businesses that need to acclimate to a high-tariff world? They're left with only three options. The first is to carry on as normal and simply swallow the costs. This is inconvenient but doable for larger companies and potentially ruinous for smaller ones. The second option is to increase prices in order to maintain profit. This obviously doesn't benefit the consumer either, because they end up swallowing the costs. The third option is to uproot their current business practices and try to find a domestic supplier, which will be both complicated and time-consuming. This brings us all the way back to the most important question of all. How will the proposed new U.S. tariffs affect the consumer? As we mentioned earlier, the United States has run on a trade deficit since the 1970s. It's a country that relies heavily on imported goods. In fact, in 2023, the U.S. actually imported $3,100 billion worth of goods. This made up around 11% of the country's gross domestic product. That same year, tariffs brought in the government revenue of $80 billion, which accounted for only about 2% of their overall tax revenue. The most popular imported goods include crude petroleum, cars, broadcasting equipment, computers, packaged medicaments, motor vehicle parts, and accessories. There's also refined petroleum, vaccines, blood, anti-sera, office machine parts, and integrated circuits, all things that the U.S. would benefit from reliable access to. The planned tariffs range from a 20% ad valorem tax on general imported goods, a 60% tariff on Chinese goods, and even a 200% tariff on foreign autos. So, you can kiss that BMW goodbye, unless you're willing to pay twice its price on the tariff alone. In the interest of fairness, one possible outcome of these tariffs is a boost to domestic production. And if the foreign exporters are desperate enough to keep customers in the United States, they could lower their prices significantly to offset the potential price hike from the imports. However, while this isn't impossible, it is highly unlikely based on tariff precedents. Between 2018 and 2020, when tariffs were hiked across the board, studies into the matter have shown that the costs were ultimately passed on to the consumers rather than improving the life of the average American. Will things be different now? Well, the University of Chicago asked a panel of economists whether they agreed with this statement. Imposing tariffs results in a substantial portion of the tariffs being borne by consumers of the country that enacts the tariffs through price increases. 98% of them agreed. The Peterson Institute for International Economics suggested that the proposed tariffs would lower the income of the poorest portion of Americans by 4%, and even the wealthiest Americans by 2%. And if that wasn't a bad enough deal already, multiple economists have speculated that the tariffs will cause another spike in inflation. Not to mention, things will get even worse if some of the affected countries, which have considerable trade relationships with the U.S., like China or Mexico, decide to institute retaliatory tariffs of their own. Claims that the tariffs will protect U.S. manufacturing jobs also don't seem to hold water either. In 2018, the U.S. introduced a 25% tariff on imported steel, but over the course of the tariff's employment, a net 4,000 jobs in steel were still lost. The rise in American steel prices didn't just affect steel producers, it sent shockwaves through other industries that rely on steel for manufacturing. From car makers to construction firms, many were hit with soaring costs, and the result was painful. There were job losses across the board as businesses struggled to stay competitive. Even if you're not buying expensive imported cars or importing steel for factories, you are still likely to feel the pinch at your local grocery store. Common ingredients like garlic are often imported from China, which will be heavily impacted by the 60% proposed tariff. Supply chain issues and a lack of availability will likely follow while new trade partnerships are brokered. And because of the lack of competition, you might still experience higher prices even when new supply chains level out. Whether any of this will make the U.S. government change course on their tariff plan, we'll just have to wait and see. Are these proposed tariffs a smart move or a risky gamble? Think they'll help or hurt us? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Now check it.
Yeah, very good explanation, I think, of tariffs. In the chat, Cheryl said, if I'm understanding properly, that would destroy those nations economically. I guess I should have started somewhere else. Hold on. Cheryl said, I saw something about Trump imposing 100% tariffs on BRICS nations if the dollar is done away with. Yes, I saw that as well. He issued his threat to BRICS nations. If you're going to mess with the almighty dollar, I think he said, you're going to have a problem. She goes on to say, if I'm understanding properly, that would destroy those nations economically, ? Or products made in countries such as China will cost more for us. Yeah, basically, they'll cost more for you. What would have been bought from China at $10 and sold for $15 in the U.S. If you add tariffs, which would add $5, for instance, to the price of the widget, now it'll cost folks in the U.S. $20 because to make a profit, you'll have to add $5 to the product and pass it on to the consumer in order to make a profit. Now, the idea, as the video stated, is it'll drive domestic channels to open up So instead of buying those widgets from China, like they mentioned, garlic and stuff like that, you'll just buy it from the U.S. But that's a complicated thing for some reason as to why you can't source it in the U.S. Maybe it's not enough supply or what have you. But that's the problem with the tariffs thing. I was talking to Brother Bakari during the week sometime, maybe this week or last week. I was talking to him, and I was talking to a neighbor of mine too, and both of them were saying the same thing, that they know people who had to close down businesses because with the tariffs and stuff like that, they couldn't afford to hike up the prices. They couldn't afford to pay their people the extra money as well. And so a lot of them couldn't give bonuses out, and some of them flat out had to close down shop. Um, so it's an interesting thing. It'll be interesting to see what the panelists think about tariffs. Let me start with Jose. Jose, what is your understanding of tariffs, and is it a good thing or a bad thing for you, I guess?
I hope that it will do what it does, and in other words, move out of the West, because these dumbass motherfuckers are destroying themselves. And I like it, but I don't like it that black people would suffer from it. So let these cave apes be cave apes and destroy themselves. But our people need to move out of the spaces that these clowns control. I saw maybe 2 months ago. I saw a short from some kind of podcast, maybe crypto, but it was financially related, and young people. And the host had difficulties to understand that not China was going to suffer, but American businesses and consumers were going to suffer, because they took this EV, this Chinese EV, for 10,000, I believe. I'm not sure, 10,000 or 30,000. But anyway, this EV was going to storm the world market, because it was a cheap EV, and quality and cheap. And so this guest explained it like, China, maybe they will sell less, but the rest of the world is still their client. But maybe they will sell less, but for China it doesn't matter. The car, the price that they will ask for the car, they will get it. But you, as a EU, or because they protect the economy here also, But anyway, the United States, 100% tariffs. If the car costs $30,000, China will get its $30,000. But as an American consumer, you're going to pay 60,000. And the same goes for indeed what was early in this video. Um, Businesses that needs parts, they're going to buy, they're going to pay 2 times the price of the parts. So I the hope is that manufacturing will return to the United States. But I think that business people will still go for cheap production. I don't think that American or Western businesses care about the consumer. They just want to produce cheap. And I don't know if I mean, what was a surprise in this video was Germany. So the 100% tariffs are also on German cars, Mercedes and BMWs. That's crazy, because they are shaking. The United States is shaking. How do they call it? The shakedown. The United States is giving Germany a real severe shakedown. That surprises me. I mean, uh, yeah. Being America's enemy is dangerous, and being America's friend is fatal. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Jose. Good stuff. With that said, Black Steel, what say you to what are tariffs for all the D students in the room? What are your thoughts? Black Steel, you're muted if you're there.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry. So this this is why Trump has filed for bankruptcy multiple times because he's completely so this is going to hurt Americans more than anything because these companies are not going to eat the costs of these products. They're going to pass those on to the consumers. And it's funny because Trump ran off the idea that he's going to make prices cheaper for Americans, about groceries being so high people can't afford to eat. And then he's going to do this, which is already going to make prices sky high. The reality is that Americans benefit from manufacturing overseas because it's cheaper. So the reason things can be in Walmart so cheap is because they're cheaper manufactured overseas. They don't have to deal with the labor laws, the union laws, the environmental laws that they have in America. So many corporations move their manufacturing overseas to skirt those laws that were being put in place to protect the American workers. So but this has led them to be able to manufacture cheap goods. But the idea that you're going to put tariffs on these countries, they're just not going to sell to America. And what will happen, like he threatened the BRICS movement, they're going to give them 100% tariffs. China and Russia is going to send their stuff overseas. So Americans are going to be the ones who are going to suffer for this more so than anybody else. We're going to feel that pinch. We're going to feel the cost of that. And as people who are already suffering under inflation, it's going to make it even worse. So congratulations, Trump, you played yourself. But then they're going to turn around and they're going to blame the immigrants and everybody else that they always do. You know, that's one thing they always do. You can always convince the poorest white man he's better than somebody else. He don't mind you picking his pocket. He don't mind you robbing him as long as he can look down on somebody else. That's America for you. I'll leave it there.
Well stated, Black Steel. I appreciate that. Buana, what are tariffs for all the D students in the room? So, Buana, express or break it down like we're five. What are tariffs, and what do you
A
think is going
tariff
to be the outcome of
is
Trump's tariffs?
yes, only a tax. It's only a tax for outsiders. For outsiders, if if you live in their house, Coco, with your home, and um, and the people in your home must able to eat food in your home because they live in your home every day, and they know who the owner of the home is. The price of the food is going to be relatively low. You know, it's not gonna they ain't gonna charge you extra. But if you have visitors come into your home and they want to eat, you charge these visitors for coming into your home, and so it's simple. It's just a tax. It's very it's just a tax. And what uh, Donald Trump doesn't understand is the unintended consequences. He doesn't understand the unintended. What's gonna happen? I can tell you what's gonna happen. Anyone who really want to understand all the nuances of a tariff, this video explains it very well. You could just watch this video again. It explains it very well. But what it doesn't explain is the unintended consequences of the so-called tax. You know, if I am a corporation, the corporation is not going to lose. So I know that Trump will be in office probably for 4 years. That means that I have to get, before he comes to power, I have to at least get maybe 2 years worth of inventory. So I'm going to get my products 2 years worth of it. 2 years worth of it. Because, after let's say after 2 years, then the house will change. The dynamics of the house will change. So he wouldn't be able to get away with a lot of these ridiculous rules and laws that he's trying to implement. But I give it say 2 years, a corporation. So they're gonna implement. They're gonna import them products from China or Japan or anywhere, any other third world, India or any other third world country, to get it at the current prices. Current prices. So when Trump comes in and he imposes this tax, what's going to happen is the cost of these products is going to shoot up. So now people really in dire need of these products is going to pay those taxes, even though the corporation would have already paid what the initial fee was before him coming to office. So they're going to make more profit on their products. That's wicked. That's wicked, man. That's wicked. But needless to say, not only that, Koku, they this is going to create an underground market. What's the underground market? There used to be in a time in America where alcohol was illegal. Alcohol was illegal. Who made all the profits from selling alcohol when it was illegal? Al Capone them. Al Capone them used to make mad money because they knew there was a need for the population. Well, there was a desire to drink alcohol. But because of prohibition, it wasn't legal to sell alcohol. So all the people who knew that there was a desire for Americans to buy alcohol was able to bring in the alcohol into the country anyways, but at an extra cost. At an extra cost. So they created a phenomenal underground where criminals or people like Al Capone them was able to get millions and millions and millions of dollars. Any intelligent person will understand what I need to find out what what my connections are in countries that don't have to pay tariffs to get these products implemented in their respective countries. And then if I am able to just get alcohol or whatever else is sold into the Americas easily, tourism, cruise ships, however they get cocaine into the Americas and drugs, they'll be getting tennis shoes and other kinds of products they used to get, but not at the same prices that this Donald Trump is imposing, and which many consumers in America actually needs. So it's going to create an underground economy. These unintended consequences. Not only that, the president of Mexico just said what this video was talking about. She said that if you impose taxes on us, we'll impose taxes on you. Now, for the regular American person listening, and I say, well, what does Mexico have to offer us? That's not a real threat. They don't have nothing to offer us. Really? Really? So these are unintended consequences that's going to happen to the regular consumer who don't necessarily know the run-ins of what's actually going on around the world. You know what I mean? And the implications of these things and how corporations are not going. He is trying to cause people to buy American. But the reality is you can't compete. The American corporations are not willing to pay the American worker at the same price point as they pay an Indian laborer or someone else in the third world to produce those products. The American worker wouldn't accept it. They will say, hell no, I'm not willing to work for $1 an hour. Get the hell out of my face. So how do you compete with that? Even if you're saying buy American. And also too, you can't, within 4 years, to find a labor market that's going to be competitive with the rest of the world, that's almost an impossible task. So really and truly, Mr. Trump is running his train up into a freaking brick wall. And I don't understand why I really, for the life of me, don't understand why he's going to actually do this to his country. He says he likes America. He says, America first. Why would he do this to the American people? I do not understand that for the life of me. Maybe someone can make me understand clearer. But if that's what he wants, if he wants to build a big cage or a big prison around the American people and say, no one gets in here, and if he will practice complete isolationist policies where forcing Americans to buy American, he may have his reasons. But at the end of the day, who is going to suffer long term? The American consumer. Oh well, good luck. But like I say, there will be many unintended consequences that Donald Trump does not talk about for some strange reason. But it's going to affect them in that way. But that's what I really wanted to say on this particular prompt. Cool.
Appreciate that, Juan. I wish I had more folks here to discuss this tariffs thing because, like I said, I had a conversation with Brother Bakari about it, and a conversation with my neighbor about it, and it's a very serious thing. This is why, honestly, you have to be savvy and aware of what's going on in these election cycles and stuff like that. Because, like Cheryl said earlier, I can't find a prompt right now, but she said, she says, I think Trump understands perfectly. He just throwing shit on the wall to see what sticks. It's similar to the first prompt we had tonight. Like Trump is reaching out to the Bahamas to take migrants. Why are you doing that, sir? Why are you doing? But he's throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. If you're a sucker, you will agree to that, right? So it's important to be a little bit savvy and understand who's out here running for office and what it is they're putting you through. I could get into it more, but I'll just say there was something implemented in the Bahamas some years ago called VAT, value added tax. And I don't think Bahamians are still over that yet. But do you think Bahamians are over the VAT tax?
No, I'm not over it because it's horse shit. You know what I mean? What value? No, no, Koku. What value do we add to the products that we import into the Bahamas? No one could say.
Yeah.
We don't add any. It's so, oh God, man. Like, Koku, when I talk about Bahamian politics, I get a headache. So I kind of like I kind of like go easy with that because I get a big headache. But I understand where we are, and I hope to develop. But America is a developed country. I'm saying that the American voters should be sparking mad. I'm like, they should be saying, "What the hell is this bullshit? Yeah, what the hell is this?"
Right, right, right. Yeah, absolutely. That's why you got to be savvy. So the thing about American politics is that it thrives on the idea that most people, especially these white folks, don't really know what's going on, man. They're not educated. They're not nuanced or any of that stuff. But all they see is, well, there's a white guy talking, and he sounds like us, and we're gonna go with what he's saying.
Coco, do you think, or Coco, or any other American on the panel, do you guys think that Black Steel, do you think that a regular American consumer doesn't understand why the cost of fruit, a simple thing like fruit, is at the price point it is? That because they have large amounts of immigrant labor coming in and actually picking their fruit at very low prices, and this is the reason why they're able to eat any fruit that they want to at a cheap price. And if you was to replace them with American labor, those same bags of apples that you buy for $2 would now cost $20. Don't you think the regular American consumer understand that? I
No,
think they do. I
no, they
think they
don't.
do.
No, they don't. Let me tell you something, Buana.
No, they don't,
Over
Bonner.
half of Americans read below a sixth grade level. Okay? Over half. So, no, they don't understand it. Not at all. If you can sit there and tell blatant lies, oh, it's the Mexican, I mean, the black people eating, the Haitians eating the dogs and the cats and stuff like that, and they believe it, no, they don't understand it. No, hell no, they don't understand it. Listen, you give Americans too much credit, brother. Don't think that the ones you,
Maybe I do. Maybe I do. Maybe I'm falling for because I watch the TV. You
yeah,
know? Maybe I do. You know?
that's not average Americans, the one you see on TV, buddy. No, 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 my friend.
Bonner, let me tell you some real talk here. In America, they get items like guava, conchs, banana, pineapples. They get that from like Mexico, right? But you tell me, where is the better quality of those products? Where's the better quality coming from?
Of course, you're gonna find it in the Caribbean. Of course, of course.
Of course. But they get that stuff from these places that, because they have a climate that's comparable, I guess, to the Caribbean, they get that stuff from there, and they sell that like it's the most premium stuff out there. I mean, no offense to Americans and stuff, but actually, Americans just don't get it. If you want the best banana, get that from the Caribbean. Get that from Dominica and stuff like. You want the best pineapple, get that from the Bahamas. You want the best conchs, get that from the Bahamas. I bought some conchs out here. This is years ago, and I vowed, and I've never bought conchs again out here, ever again. They were coming from Belize, and they just weren't the same, Buana. But the
I bet you pay
American,
an arm and a leg for that shit too, by the way.
yes, I paid a good penny because as a Bahamian, I want to eat some conchs from time to time. You know what I mean? I want to try. I was trying to introduce my lady to conch fritters. Well, she had known it from her own travels as well, to conch fritters and conch salad. And there's hardly any conch meat on these Belizean conchs and stuff like that. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. But people here believe in this whole American experience. They don't believe in nothing else outside of it. And that's the game that's being played here. You know what I mean? And people being taxed on that game. My neighbor was telling me, my neighbor's Puerto Rican. My neighbor understands what's going on. He told me, he was like, listen, the migrants who work in the fields down south, if you don't have them working, no American is going to work those fields. I'm talking about the fields down by Black Steel and them. No American is working those fields. Now you went and add tariffs to the whole shit. Where you got to import that stuff now and pay a surplus on it. It's madness. It's madness, but the average American consumer doesn't get it. And here we are. You know? Does anyone...
Well, they can feel it. The only thing I can tell my brothers in America, y'all save your money and try to wait it out. You get 4 years of Trump, and hopefully somebody reverse a lot of that nonsense. This brother, I really don't think I don't think he can do it. I still stand on that. I don't think he can do half of these things. I think he's just talking. But if he does, man, do what y'all can. Save your money. That's all I can say, man. You know.
Yeah, boy, and I appreciate that. Any other last thoughts on this prompt or any other prompt for tonight?
Yes.
Sir, go
It looks like 47 is going to be like 45, and the rest of the world, especially BRICS, should take advantage of it. You know, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be messy. He's going to be in the news every day. People are going to make fun about his picks and choices. That's how it was in 45. So I expect, I hope it, because this Zionist this Zionist flavor is very strong in this administration. But yeah, I hope it gets as chaotic as 45 was. I don't know if it actually was chaotic, but from the outside, from here, it looked very chaotic, and it looked like the rest of the world was taking advantage of it. So I hope that happens again.
appreciate that, Jose. Cheryl in the chat says, I think the idea is that many products are made in China, but many are cheap and low quality. So maybe he has a plan to create more jobs for Americans instead of getting them overseas. Question mark. She said, if that's the case, things will be expensive in the beginning, but thinking long term, this would be good for Americans if he can pull it off. She goes on to say, have y'all seen them spray painting the fruit and veggies coming from Mexico? LOL. No, I didn't see that. But I can imagine. She says, to make it look more refreshing, this is part of the delusion of the American diet. We think we're getting something good, but we're getting crap. So Trump actually has the right idea in the long term. Marie Shai says black people are going to have to go back down south and start the gardens and plant fruit trees. Sigh. Yeah. I want to thank everyone who contributed tonight. Before you guys leave the panel tonight, because that's the last prompt for tonight, I want you guys to give your positive shout outs for the week. My shout out is going to be to Anthony McPhail. Anthony has tried and tried to get on this panel with this new EV Mux, what we're using tonight to do the live stream. Tonight it was great for Buana, who's returned this week. And I'm glad to see Buana is back and can be heard properly and no problems. But we got to get Anthony working. I like to hear his thoughts on these things as well. So my shout out to him for perseverance. He keeps trying, and we're gonna get that fixed, Anthony. So don't stress about it. Jose, you want to shout anything out this week? Jose, you're muted if you're talking.
Yes, indeed. Difficulties get unmuted. Sometimes I have to tap like 10 times. But yeah, shout out to little me. I managed to buy a piece of land on his name past week. So yeah, shout out to little me.
Now, that's good stuff. If I'm understanding correctly, you purchased some land for your son. Is what you're saying?
Yes, yes. So now this is what I count as my first anchor into African land, because that's why we do it. I mean, I'm an old dude, and if you move back to Africa, you're doing it for your children and their children and their children, right? So
Right.
that's why I consider this my first real thing.
Yeah, that's great, man. You purchased some land back on the continent. That's really good. I saw you hosting a space earlier about Bitcoin. Was that the case?
I wasn't hosting it, but I befriended somebody. Somebody with maybe you saw it 55,000 bitcoins. So
Right, right.
he's
Yeah.
he's kind of fortunate, and yeah, we're gonna look. He made a coin, because nowadays you can go to website and make your own coin. But we're going to see what we can do with coins with pan African coins with a pan African taste. We're going to see if maybe we can create a meme coin, or promote the coin that he already created with an application, with a but I believe if you start, your marketing has to be strong, especially now that you have more than 60,000 coins. It's ridiculous. So yeah, your marketing has to be strong. So maybe in a few days, in a few weeks, I don't know. I don't know if we're really going to do it, but we have to. Yeah, yeah, the conversation, the agreements, the understanding have to be strong also. So yeah,
Appreciate that, Jose. I think as someone, I might trip him. I feel like someone started a black coin or a Pan African coin at one point a couple of years ago when this whole coin thing became a thing. That'll be interesting to see what can be done there.
yeah. It was a port from Stella. Yeah, I haven't been on Facebook for like 9 months or something. But yeah, I was in on Facebook. I was in a group where the creator of that coin was the administrator of the group, the creator of the group. But yeah, yeah, us black people, we don't take each other serious. So if you start something, you get a lot of our people obstructing, or I don't know what it is. We don't believe in each other, man. We don't believe this Zimbabwean brother also. Earlier this week, we were also in a space, and the backlash, the suspicion of our own people. It's hard, man. It's hard. It's difficult. But anyway, yeah, you have black coins indeed. Yes.
Yeah, Jose, you said something very interesting there. The suspicion of our people. Let me tell you, this woman who did the Hawk tour shit, she had a coin. Now it crashed in like friggin' 10 minutes or some shit like that. But it's the idea that we, because of our suspicions of our own people, we don't get behind anything. Whereas with these other people, they get behind some bullshit stuff. Now, her coin didn't have any. What's the word that Kevin Carre always tells me? Her coin didn't have any real use, but I except maybe her popularity for the time being. But because of our suspicions, we don't really get behind. So there was something called Guac coin at one time that seemingly was doing something for a while. It was on the level of XRP. I don't know if you guys noticed, but XRP coin has been doing very well recently. A lot of those coins have been doing very well recently. Bitcoin's been doing well as well. And Bakari points out Akon, the entertainer. He has a coin called Acoin. But we just don't really support our. We view ourselves with such suspicion, I think, and we don't really know if what we're doing has utility. That's the word I'm trying to find. Utility in the
Yes,
market.
utility was the word. I used the word application, but indeed, yes, the coin that the brother created also has a utility. Yes, sorry.
Yes. Shout out to Afro Native where he says, okay, Bitter Medicine Podcast, diaspora war between Bahamas and Belize over conch. There's like Jollof wars in West Africa. LOL. No, it's not even a war, man. It's just I know what a conch's supposed to be, and I know what you're supposed to be able to get from a conch. And Belize and them conchs that they sell frozen out here in New York, it just ain't it, man. With that said, let me get shout outs from Black Steel this week. Black Steel, what are your shout outs?
Well, I want to shout out the little girl again. Her family made the GoFundMe, so they blew past it. It's such a heartbreaking story. So I'm glad that they were able to get at least that. I hope their lawsuit is successful. Um, Black people, check on your kids, man. Check on your kids because you don't know what they go through in this world. But yeah, so that's my shout out. Great show tonight.
Yeah, it's been a great show because you were here, Black Seal was here. I'm sorry, Buana was here and Jose was here. So it's because of you guys. The show was really great, and I appreciate all of you. I see our sister Marie Shai says, "What is conch, man?" Marie Shai, you gotta get with a Bahamian, man. Uh
What? She never had come before?
oh, Black Seal, you know
Oh
about
my
conch, right?
gosh. I've never had Bahamian conch. I had some conch fritters in Key West. And it was good. I enjoyed it. But I gotta imagine what you guys have in the Bahamas is so much better.
You
The
know
guy
what?
from the person from Key West probably made. He was probably a Bahamian, either
He
Bahamian or Haitian
was. He
anyway.
was.
So you basically get the same kind. Well, you know what? In South Florida, they make it flat for some reason in some areas, and then they
Yeah,
make it into a ball in some areas. So it just depends on who you're eating it from, you know.
yeah, but let me just show this real quick, Buana. Hold on, let me play this real quick.
To make it, peel, clean, and tenderize the conch until it's easy to tear. Make a simple wet mixture with egg and milk and a dry mixture with all-purpose flour and cornstarch and season both with salt and pepper. Drop pieces of the conch into the wet mixture, then coat with the flour mixture. Fry for just a few minutes until golden brown, just like this. Drain on a rack, then serve with Bahamian-style mac and cheese, salad, and coleslaw with a lime on the side. Tell me, what's your favorite way to eat conch?
Yes, indeed. When I was a young fella, me and Daily Affirmations by Paul, and shout out to her, when we were still on the island, uh, we used to go by a place called Dirty's, and well, actually, we used to go by a place called Dulce's, and we used to get Kong burgers and Kong snack, and it's just a different time, man. Brother Bakari said he had conch in the Bahamas. Shout out to Brother Bakari for that. Afro World says he got conch in Miami, brought here by the Bahamians. Absolutely. Um, Marisha, I call it spicy snail in Oyo State, Nigeria. I'm not sure about the snail thing because in Africa proper, in the continent, they actually eat snail. like what the French call it, escargot. They actually eat snail. I was actually looking at a recipe here in New York where they were selling it, and I was like, nah, I can't eat snail. I know snails when I was growing up in Nassau, but conch is something of the same ilk. But crack conch and conch salad is something else, man. But anyway, let me before I get myself hungry here. Let's go to Buana. Buana, what's that shout out this week?
I'm curious if they have any Bahamian restaurants in New York City, because I ain't never seen any on Wednesday. Anyways,
No,
um,
no, they used to be just quickly. There used to be, and I used to love this place, man. There used to be a place in Manhattan called Carib. And what
yeah,
they used to do was they used to sell like the national dish of pretty much every Caribbean country. So I
okay.
used to go there and I used to get conch fritters and stuff like that back in the day. But they closed down a long time ago.
Okay, that would be a good idea. That would be a good idea for some Bahamian who live in New York City, because I'm sure it's a good amount of Bahamians and people from the surrounding areas who would love Bahamian food. So I don't know why they don't really have more. I guess Jamaica have that stuff on lock, food on lock in them areas. But I'm thinking Bahamian food is we competitors. You know, when it comes to that good food, I don't understand why we don't have more restaurants in NY, but yeah, but let me just say, shout out to the sisters who've been contributing. Mary Shy seems to love this child because she stayed until 11:23. So she seems to really love this channel, and we welcome her. We welcome her into coming to the sport to really enjoy and converse and have a good kind of conversation, a positive conversation, and we hope to see her again. And to all the sisters, Cheryl Easy, and my sister Raw, and Pauline, and Matron, and all the sisters, Barbados, it's all love. So I appreciate the fact that they came on, and they may not speak, but they sure do listen. They sure do listen. So it's an our thing to give the best that we can, the best kind of information that we can, because people are listening and people actually get something from the things that we talk about. So shout out to all the sisters tonight who have contributed and actually just come to listen. Also, let me say this too. I am very hard on the Bahamas sometimes, on my country sometimes, but I would say shout out to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister did an actual good thing. So you can't only criticize when people do crazy things. You should also be positive and tip your hat when they actually do something that's actually good. So I'm saying that saying no to just any immigrants coming from anywhere around the world, that's a good thing. Yeah, you gotta say no. You gotta say no sometimes. So shout out for having some balls about it and saying no. Shout out for having some backbone and saying no to that idea of having just immigrants come here and just flushing the toilet of all kind of people just to come to the Bahamas. We are not America's toilet bowl or trash can. So shout out to him for making that decision and doing what he did. But shout out to everyone who contributed to the panel tonight. I appreciate all the brothers, Jose, Black Steel, and you always Coco. But I'll leave it there.
Yes, indeed. Shout out to Buana, Black Steel, Jose, Anthony McPhail, Marie Shy, Kofi the Black Critic, Brother Bakari, the Matron, KW Dawn 7, Sister Raw. Shout out to Real Black Gentleman. Shout out to Oni, who wasn't here tonight, but he's always around. Shout out to Daily Affirmation by Pauline. Shout out to Joe. Shout out to everyone, man. Shout out to Africans worldwide. We make a difference. Let's get together and make it really a difference. We'll be here again next week. Next week will be what? The 14th? We'll be here next week, man. Make sure you guys come through. Bring a friend. I like the attendance tonight. About 15 people was here tonight. Come through, bring a friend, and let's really get into these conversations a little bit deeper. Until then, you guys be good, and I'll see you later. Peace.
Peace.